Hey guys, Carl from Purpose Plays. Today I'm taking a preview look at a prototype copy of Neon Hope from designers Dominik Schönleben, Francesco Grothe, and publisher Hopeful Games. This is a sort of LCG style adventure card game in which you're playing the role of a character going through a story, sort of playing cards for skill checks and hopefully leveling up or sort of developing your deck along the way. This one caught my attention first because of the artwork, but then also because of the theme, whereas rather than a sort of dark dystopian cyberpunk kind of story, this is a sort of more hopeful, messed up, says glitched utopian solar punk style of theme, which is unique and new and different enough to me that I was very interested. I've also been trying real hard to sort of get into an LCG because the concept of them seems interesting to me, but I still haven't been hooked by any of them so far. So I was very excited when I was given the opportunity to take a look at this prototype. Quick disclaimer, as a prototype I was given advanced sort of access to this game by the publisher, but with that said, let's head down to the table to see how this one plays, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. Before I get started, I just want to point out that everything you see here is just a prototype copy of this game as it is just hitting Kickstarter. So none of the components are the finalized components for the game. Also, I am going to sort of set up this game on camera, but again, because this is a prototype and because things might change, this might be changing as well. But with that being said, to set up a solo game of Neon Hope, I'm going to begin by selecting my character. And in this prototype, I do have access to these two characters, Lars Krajewski and Dennis Vilmaz. I am going to use Lars Krajewski for this playthrough. So I'm going to stick her card down here at the bottom of my screen. You'll see I'm going to fill this up with quite a bit. I'm sorry if it's too far zoomed out. I will sort of pick things up and show them off as I play. And then I'm going to take her deck, which are all of the cards containing this heart symbol here in the bottom right corner. And from this deck, I'm going to take her 8 action cards that are marked down here in the bottom left corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Next, I'm going to take the 4 regular tool cards, placing those under my character. I will be able to make use of those later on, sort of adding them to my deck or to my hand, or actually to my tableau later on during gameplay. The other thing though is she has this one card here that is marked as character tool, and I'm going to be able to choose one side of this card, either the revoked company ID or the confiscated goods. But I'm going to do that later after I set up and sort of explain a little bit how the game plays so that you can see how everything works and why I'm choosing the one that I'm choosing. And then these 8 cards are her starting deck, but because I'm playing solo, I'm going to add in 2 more cards from the other player's deck that are marked down here as universal cards. And I am going to start with this entire deck available to me, so I am just going to sort of splay them out like this. I'm not sure how many of them are going to fit across the screen with all 10 cards. Not bad. So I'm going to do that, and I'll sort of make reference to them and show them up closer as we get into gameplay. Then also I am going to take this endurance dial for her. Normally this would get placed down below her picture, but just to save space, I'm going to put it off to the side. And I'm going to set it to an endurance of 10 for solo play. So I'm just going to point it at the card like that, so we know that she's starting with an endurance of 10. And I'll leave a little bit of space over here for a discard pile for later. Then I'm also going to take these 3 action tokens that I'm going to use to sort of mark when I've taken an action. And I'll just set those over here. If I need to move them around to fit other things on screen, I will do so. And then to finish setting up my area, I also need to take 3 of these hope tokens. And I'll just set those here on my card for right now. And I'll explain again what everything does when I get into gameplay, but let me set up the sort of main area of the game. I'm going to stack these cards here in order of sort of story. So we're starting with introduction, then chapter 1 front, chapter 2 front, and chapter 3 front. And I'll stick those up here at the top of the screen. Then I need to set up the encounter deck. So I'm going to take all of these cards here, marked with this symbol that are all of the encounter cards. And to them, I'm going to add some cards depending on the difficulty level I'm playing. And there are 3 different difficulty levels in this game: normal, hard, and hopeless. And so far I've only ever played the game on normal, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of a challenge because I have won all of my normal plays. So I'm going to be playing on hard today, which means from these additional encounter cards, I am going to be taking 2 of these At the Darkest Hour cards and 3 of these Rigged System cards, and I'll be loading those into the encounter deck, giving it a shuffle, and then I'll place that up here. Placing that out here, and I'm actually going to move these over because I remembered I do want a little bit more space over here, and for a minute I'll show you why. But next there is sort of one more set of levers or gears that we can turn to change the different difficulties. In addition to the normal difficulty levels, there is also the choice between story mode or challenge mode, and challenge mode is just sort of a more accelerated version of the game. So I am going to be playing on story mode since I already am playing hard. So I'll go ahead and set that right there like that. Then I'm going to take the surveillance tracker, which is this dial right here, setting this to a 0 like that. Let me slide these here, put that there like that. Yeah, that'll work. And then before I set up any of the story stuff, which I'll show you in just a minute, I need to set up sort of my reserve token area, and I also need to set up the grid, which is going to be our sort of token draw modifier deck kind of system. So I need to place out this card called the Archive, which I'll put right out here like that. And then into my grid, I'm going to be placing this array of different tokens. We've got 2 each of +3, +2, +1, -3, -2, -1, zeros, then 3 of these -1 redraw skulls, 1 of these instant fail skulls, and then 1 of these instant success tokens. And I'm going to flip all of those face down, mixing them up, and I will place 3 of them without looking at them onto the archive. Means for that sort of initial wave of tokens, 3 of them will have been removed at random. So here is the grid all set up like this, a 4x4 grid of tokens with 3 of them having been removed randomly. And then off to the side of the screen, I will have my supplies of hacking cubes, these attribute support markers, these double-sided skill and sort of attack or damage tokens, and finally the double-sided hope, which you've already seen, and on the opposite side of that are these resources. And I'll explain how all of that works, but like that, we're sort of set up for the main setup for the game. So all that needs to happen now is that I need to follow the sort of story and set up how the story works. So I'm going to begin by drawing this introduction card. I'm going to read you the introductory story, and then I'll flip this over and it'll tell me how to set up the story itself. So starting with this card, it says, Introduction. The music is so loud that it's deafening. Blue and purple neon lights pulse with the rhythm of the neurotech beats that fill the room. You've been to the Siphon before, but that was long ago. You never intended to return to the notorious Electro Club in the east of Berlin. It's one of those places where they will ask you to hand in your augmented reality glasses to stop you from recording a video. You're not sure why you're here. Your friend Andre has asked you to come, and he'd been quite insistent about it. He had said something about his job at Nubicon and that he needed to talk to you, as you were someone he could trust. It all sounded quite odd, but not quite as odd as the strangeness in his voice when he declined to tell you that what this was all about. It was because of this that you agreed to come. Now here you are at the Siphon's main bar where Andre wanted to meet you. However, Andre is not, and worse, he did not answer his phone. Perhaps you should look around to find him. Flip this card. Now, you'll see here, I'm not going to hold this while I do it, but I'm going to follow these sort of steps to set up the story. So it says first, give the responsibility to a player with the underground trait. I'm the only player, and the character I've chosen is the underground trait player, so I will be the responsible player, or in this case, the first player, but since that's me only, that doesn't really mean much for the solo game. Then it says we're going to put the Siphon setting into play from the staging deck. So there is a deck of cards called the staging deck that has all of these different sort of settings and locations that you're going to be visiting during the game. So it says that I'm going to be taking this Siphon card, which is this location or this setting right here. It says it's an Electro Club, and on the back of this it's going to tell me how to set this up. So it says above this card, in this location above this card, I need to place out one barkeeper card and one of the bar cards at random. And down at the bottom, I'm going to be placing a dance floor with one random copy of that dance floor as well. So I'm going to set this out here like that. And then I do need to place out the barkeeper, and you'll notice that these cards are double-sided. I'm not going to show you the back yet, but this is labeled as A, which means that is the front side. So we got a barkeeper right here, and there are 2 bar cards, so I'm going to give those a shuffle and place one of those randomly out in the same location like that. And then likewise at the bottom there is 2 dance floor cards, so same thing, shuffling those and placing one dance floor out down here. Let me spread out just a bit so everything fits in there nicely like that. And depending on how things work out, actually, you know what, let's do that right now just to give myself a bit more space, because there is one more thing I do need to do in just a second. The next thing says I'm going to search this encounter deck for one copy of data de-anonymization, and then I'm going to put that out here in what is called the network, and then reshuffle that deck. And then we are all set up like this, and it says you are now ready to begin. So this card is going to go away. But now we are looking at this card. Chapter 1 says searching for your friend. So it says maybe you can find Andre at the bar or the dance floor. So my goal right now is, if I can flip both the bar card and the dance floor card to their back side, I will trigger the next chapter of the story. But having set the cards out, I have to finish setting up the cards. You'll notice both the dance floor and the bar have this blue diamond with a number in the center. And that is the number of tokens that I'm going to need to place out on that card, that I'm going to need to be able to clear. And as soon as those tokens have been cleared from those cards will flip over to the other side. So once I've sort of resolved all of the secrets, which is what those tokens are called, I will have cleared that area, flipping it over to see what happens at that location. Then the barkeeper you'll see on the side here has 4 different colors of these support tokens. So that means I'm going to place one of each of these support tokens, and I'm always going to place them with the side that shows 2 icons facing up, and I'll explain what those do in just a second when I get into sort of the skill check piece of the game. But with that, we are all set up. So let me show you, there are a series of sort of player aid cards that come with the game. And looking here at this round overview, we're going to start each round by playing the player phase. And it says here, each player takes their turn by performing 3 actions. I can take turns in any order, but I'm the only player, so that doesn't matter. And then after that, we will move into the encounter phase. So let me sort of explain the player phase first, and then I'll come back and talk about the encounter phase before I do anything so you know what's happening. So on my turn, I'm going to be using my actions, I get 3 of them each turn, in order to, as shown here on this list, complete a task, move to a new location, or activate some kind of card ability that might need me to spend an action to activate. And the tasks that I can take are investigate, get support, fight, and hack, and all 4 of those are going to work the same way. But before I do that, let me mention one of those 3 actions is changing locations. I should be starting at this location, right up here. And each of these sort of areas is a location. So these 2 are in one location, and the dance floor is in a different location. So moving between those 2 will take an action. And it's worth sort of stressing that the siphon is not the location. The siphon is a setting that includes 2 different locations. And then while I'm at a location, I can interact with either of the cards there, and those are the tasks. And you'll see here is a get support task, here is an investigate task, and here is another investigate task. Also up here in the network is another card that has a hack task. Let me talk about that one last as I get into the next phase, or the encounter phase, but let's focus on what's going on here right now. Again, the 4th task we will see later is fighting, but right now there's nobody around for me to fight. In any case, the way that these these tasks are going to play out is using the 4 different attributes of our character. And that is green perception, yellow charisma, red courage, and blue technology skill. And you'll see that my character is starting with a 2 perception, 2 charisma, 3 courage, and 1 technology. And in order to take on a task, I'm going to choose which task I'm doing. So in this case, I could do investigate, seeing here that that uses perception, or get support, seeing here uses charisma. And I need to successfully pass a skill check of whatever number is shown next to that task type. So in this case, I need to have at least 2 green perception checks in order to pass that system, to pass that task. And the way that that's going to happen is, first I check the number that I have already for my ability. Then I'm going to check any tools that might give me something special to do. And I just realized we still have to choose which tool we're going to use. Then if I have any of these sort of support tokens, I can choose to add 2 to my ability. And you'll see those start with 2 icons on them. The first time I use them, they flip over. So they are 2 usage. And when I use them, I can use one of them to add +2 to my total of that matching type. And then finally, I can play, if I choose to, play one of the cards in my hand to sort of add to the ability in some way. And then finally, to see if I did pass, I need to turn over one of these things. So before I show you what the cards do, let's talk about the grid. You saw that in this grid, potentially there are 2 +3, +2, and +1s, 2 -3, -2, -1, 2 zeros, 3 negative skulls with a redraw, 1 auto-fail skull, and 1 auto-success. So the +3s, or sorry, the pluses, minuses, and zeros do exactly what they say. They will just add, subtract, or nothing the value of the sort of skill level that you've already put forth. The skull -1 is simply going to subtract 1 from your total value, but force you to draw another tile for another token from here, which could eventually manipulate your total another way. The skull instant fail will instantly fail regardless of what value your skill level was at. And the instant win or instant success will automatically let you succeed, but will also give you a second success. Because what this 4 here means is that I need to succeed 4 times at this bar in order to clear all those tokens. Likewise, there are 4 different tokens here that I can claim. Every success I have at this barkeeper will give me one of these tokens. Now, the skulls, both the instant fail and the -1 skull, have an additional effect, and that is they will activate all enemies that are out at every location on the board. But I'll get more into that when the enemies actually come out, because right now there's nobody there to bother fighting with or to talk about. So let me show you what those things are when they are on the screen. So again, during my turn, I've got these 3 actions to move around between locations and mostly be activating these skill checks. Let me show you the cards so you can get an idea of what kind of manipulation abilities I have for those skill checks. Here I've got High Hopes that will add a +2 value to any task I'm doing. And if I succeed, I will gain 1 hope. Here, if I'm doing a fight, I can add +3. And if I succeed, I get to analyze the encounter deck for 3. That means I get to look at the top 3 cards of this encounter deck, which we will be drawing one from every round. And I will then be able to discard one of them and shuffle the rest back in, which is good because if something nasty is coming up in the future, I can sort of deal with it before it hits me. Here I've got a fight +0 and a hack +0, but these green check marks mean that if I play this card and I succeed in that skill check, I succeed twice in a single action. It says here I'm allowed to suffer 1 stress to add a +2 to the value. And suffering stress in this game means I can discard a card. But it's also worth mentioning that anytime I suffer stress, instead of discarding a card, I can simply discard a hope token instead. And that's what those hope tokens are there for. Then it says if you succeed and have 1 or fewer cards in your hand, I will also gain 1 hope. Here we got kicking indoors, investigate, or support +0, but again, an additional success. Again, I can suffer stress to add 2. And if I succeed with one or fewer cards, again, gain a hope. Well respected is investigate or get support +2. Says I'm reckless. It means I have to reveal an additional modifier token from the grid if I use this card. And then if I reveal 1 or more skulls during that reveal, I'm going to remove 2 secrets from a lead at my setting. So that's great. If I fail, it helps sort of progress one of the things at my location. And secrets, again, are these green tokens that we're trying to remove at most locations. Next, I've got anger issues. Fighting +1 and an additional success. Again, reckless means I have to draw an additional modifier. And again, if I reveal skulls, I get to do damage to an enemy at my setting. Upholding the code, fight and hack +2. Again, reckless. And again, this time if I reveal one or more skulls, I can place 2 hacking cubes. Now, hacking is something I haven't talked about. Hacking cards like this one are generally things that are going to do something bad to you. But if ever I can hack enough times to fill up these spaces by placing 1 cube for each success, that card will go away. So I want to be hacking to sort of prevent bad things from happening to me. And again, this one here would allow for me to place an additional 2 hacking cubes if a skull gets pulled. Reading the crowd, investigate and get support +0 with an extra success, and I get to add +2 to my value for every enemy that's at my location. Unauthorized access is a hack +3, and if I succeed, I get to retreat 1 regular enemy. I'll talk more about retreat when the enemies come out, but that's sort of how I can push the enemies to different locations so they're not around to hurt me. Or realistically flip them over to deactivate them. But again, you'll see how that works when we play. Data breach, investigate, and hack is 0 with an extra success. And if I succeed by 2 or more, I get an additional impact or an additional 1 success. So this card could get me 3 successes in 1 turn if I had a big success. And that's back to the high hopes. So placing all those out, and then I am going to choose my starting tool. Confiscated goods here says, whenever you defeat an enemy or a state, and states are these cards up here, which I'm going to explain again in just a minute. It says I get to recover 1 action card at random from my discard pile. Recovering means returning to my hand. And it says I can't recover a card played during this task, so I can't play and recall at the exact same time. The other option is revoked company ID. It says after you reveal a modifier for a task, I can reveal an additional modifier. And then if the task fails, I'm going to suffer 1 stress. But I can only do that once per task. So what that means is I could potentially push myself to be even stronger. I have played with that one before. I've never played with the confiscated goods before, so I'm going to keep that one. I don't know if it's going to help me that much, and the push my luck aspect might be more fun, but let's take the confiscated goods and see what happens. One more thing I should mention is anytime I successfully flip a card means if I've cleared all 4 of these tokens, if I cleared all of the secrets on a location, if I finish one of these state cards by filling it up with hacks, or if I defeat an enemy, I will get one of these resources or material tokens. And the interesting thing about this game is as I'm playing cards from my hand, those cards are going to be discarded into a discard pile. And when I'm out of cards, they do not come back automatically. In order for them to come back to me, I need to perform a focus. And I can choose to focus early, discarding everything in my hand and starting over. But when I focus, I'm going to tick this endurance down 1 level. And again, this endurance is the number of cards that I have in my hand, or that I'm allowed to have in my hand. So that means this next hand of cards, I will only have 9 of my cards available to me. The next time I focus, I will only have 8 of my cards available to me, 7 of my cards available to me, and so on. But in addition, every time I focus, I can also potentially get one of these tools. And to do that, I have to spend a number of material tokens equal to the number here in the top right corner, and it will give me some kind of special ability. But I'll look more into these special abilities the first time I focus, just so you have some more idea of how the game plays before I sort of show you what all of those different tools do. So the last thing I want to talk about before I do take my first action is the encounter phase. So at the end of a round, after I've played all 3 of my actions, then I'm going to resolve all abilities on cards that are in this network up here, which right now is data de-anonymization. And it says at the beginning of the encounter phase, each player suffers 1 stress. And again, suffering 1 stress means discarding 1 card from my hand or getting rid of 1 hope token. Then after activating anything that's here, I'm going to place 1 hacking cube for free on each state in the network. So if I have multiple of these cards with hacking, they will each get 1. which means this card will always hit me at least once unless I've cleared it during my action phase by hacking. Then I'm going to increase the surveillance by 1. And if there are any enemies at the location where my character is, for each enemy there, I will increase by an additional 1. And I just realized you can't really see that, so I'm going to lay her down like that instead of using the standee. And then when we increase this, I need to check this surveillance threshold, because when we hit values of 8, 16, 24, 32, and then 40, things will happen and or the game will end in sort of a loss condition when we hit 40. So there is a bit of a timer on this game from that. Then any enemy that I retreated, meaning I flipped face down and deactivated, which hopefully you'll see later on in gameplay, they will sort of wake back up. All of my action tokens will be refreshed, and then finally we're going to draw one more card from the encounter deck, which is generally a bad thing, but there are a couple of nice cards in there, and eventually when the enemies come out, the enemies will also get seeded into that deck as well. And I think with that, we're pretty much ready to get into gameplay. Let me sort of just start playing my first round, and you can kind of see how things play as I go. Remembering that my goal is I need to flip both this bar and this dance floor. So I need to do 4 actions, or sorry, reveal 4 secrets here and reveal 2 secrets here, and getting some of these might help with some of those actions. I do see right away that this is green, this is red, and this is yellow. My red is 3. My green and yellow are both only 2. But also this red requires 3, and the investigate and get support up here only require 2. So we're sort of at flat level. If I turned over something that wasn't negatively bad, I could instantly succeed without having spent any cards. But that said, I'd like to try and get some stuff done. So I want to kind of focus on these 2. But if I can get support and get some tokens to help me succeed at these 2 things, that would be even better. So let me see what I've got with get support. That would succeed. That's a get support. That's a get support. All right, so these 2 both get me 0 additions for get support, but would get me an additional success if I succeeded, which would be great. This one here is pretty cool. It would get me a +2 value. It means I'd be going in with a 4 before drawing a modifier, but it does say I have to reveal double modifiers. But also says if I reveal skulls, I get to remove 2 secrets from a location. So I could basically do that and then hopefully even do that if I mess up at that location. So I think I'm going to try that. So I'm going in with Charisma 2, +2 for get support is 4. I'm aiming to succeed on a 2. I need to turn over 2 modifiers. So picking one at random is a -2, so I'm down to 2. And then a -1, so I'm down to 1, and I failed, so nothing happens. That is just a used action. A very sad used action, unfortunately. But I have now removed some of the minus from this grid, which is potentially a good thing. Then I want to investigate. And to do that, let's see what I want to do. Do I have an investigate that gets me any pluses? I don't. I've got investigates that get me extra successes, 3 of them, but none of them get me pluses, unfortunately. Hack, I could try hacking here. That's only a single success. I could try hacking. Yeah, you know what? Let's try hacking a card just to prevent some of the stress from that card. So I am hacking. She's got a 1 value, unfortunately. This needs a 2 skill, but this gets me +2, so I'm at 3. I do have to draw 2 modifiers from this card, but if I get a skull, I get to place out 2 cubes anyway. So we're going to draw 2 things. Okay, there's a +2. I'm at 5. And a skull means I'm at -1 is 4, and I have to draw again, which is -3. 1, 2, 3 is down to 1. So I failed, but I have revealed 1 or more skulls, so I actually get to place 2 cubes there anyway, which is great. That card goes away. Then I really do have to focus on getting more investigation. There's more negative than positive here, so that's good to see. And I am going to investigate. Yeah, I'm going to no. No, I want to focus on getting support right now while I can. And this card says, when played, I may suffer 1 stress to add +2, and I will, because I'm starting with a 2. +2 would make it a 4, which is much more likely to succeed, but I need to take stress. So I got to get rid of a card or a hope. And right now I don't have any need for fight cards, so I'm just going to get rid of that fight card for right now, saving my hope for when I need it later, which means I'm at 4. I'm drawing once. -1, that's great. I'm at 3, means I succeed, plus I get an additional success for this green check. So I get to take 2 of these, and I will take the green and the red one because this is green and this is red. So that will help next round. And like that, that's the end of that. Now, at the beginning of the encounter phase, each player suffers 1 stress. And I don't expect to, you know what, here, I have another fight card that I'm not using anyway. We'll put that in there for when we might need it later. So I don't have to do anything else from that. I'm going to place 1 hacking cube there, which instantly finishes that card. So that goes away. And by going away, I do get to take 1 of these material tokens or resources. Then we do get 1 surveillance tick up. And then I'm going to draw an encounter card. Ooh, we start with one of the nice helpful ones, gain 1 hope. That was great. So now there's nothing here for me to deal with as far as hacking is concerned. I've got an extra hope. These flip back over and we go back to our action phase. Now I got some great stuff. Now I want to fight for this bar. And I want to use this one here. That is investigate. It doesn't add anything to my value, but I've already got a 2, and if I use this support token, whoops, that I got already, that's +2. So I'm at 4, I only need 2 to succeed. If I succeed with this, I succeed twice. And if I succeed 2 or more, I get a 3rd success. So we hope that I don't get anything worse than a -1. Flipping over, and there's a -2. All right, so we do succeed twice, but I don't get the 3rd one. So let's get rid of that 3 and put a 1 back, like that. Then, what do we got left for cards? I got another investigate, double success. Yeah, let's do that. Using my 2nd charge of that, I'm at 4 again. I need 2 to succeed. This one says add 2 for every enemy at my location. There aren't any, so I am going in with 4. +1 is 5. I wish I'd gotten that last time, but anyway, we succeed twice, and now I've finished the bar. So now the bar flips over, and I'm a lawyer. No, not that kind of bar. We find, I'm going to butcher this name, Wen An Bergman. Says she's a regular at the bar. There was this guy with a Nubicon hoodie a moment ago. Looked like it was his first time at the siphon. So now I'm going to put 2 of those perception tokens on this card. When I complete this card, you'll see down here, she'll become a follower. It's almost like a tool that I get to add to my tableau, which will give me a permanent +1 perception. So that would be really, really nice to have. So I may want to focus on doing that. The problem is, in my hand right now, I don't have a lot of stuff to work towards that. Although, why not? Whoops. Those should have both been flipped for the 2 actions I just did. Playing this high hopes. +2 to any task. This is a get support task. I need a 3 to succeed. But I see a lot of red out here already. So I'm going to push my luck. I need a 3 to succeed. I'm starting with a 2. +2 is 4. And we flip over, an instant fail. Well, there's no enemies to attack us. That is a shame because it means I wasted my action and this card. But it means now the instant fail is not in there anymore, which is great. That flips over. And I do realize just now that when I finished that last time, my confiscated goods would have let me bring something back into my hand. I don't remember which card I played when I did that. Oh, I didn't play any card, actually, because that was from the middle of the thing. Means I could have taken anything but those 3 cards back into my hand. And at this time, I would have taken an investigate. So I will take the well-respected, because that's investigate and get support. I'm sorry I'm retconning, but that would have happened. Then we go back into encounter phase. There's nothing here to resolve. This goes up by 1. We're at 2. And then these come back. We flip the next card, which is a rigged system. It says draw 2 additional encounter cards. All right, so we're getting double encounters. First one here, unexpected complications. Play hard, fail hard. It's a double hack. Next time, oh no, sorry. When it's revealed, sorry, I didn't point these out before. There are dice also that I should have put out. I'm going to roll 1 attribute and place it on this card, which is yellow. All tasks relying on the attribute of the die on the card are hard. And hard means that regular skulls with the -1 are actually turned into the super fail skulls instead. So anytime I'm doing a yellow action, if I draw a skull, it's an instant fail, which is a shame because both of those are yellow actions. Then I do have to draw a second one. Profiling says choose 1, increase the surveillance by 1 or suffer 2 stress. Well, I'm going to take the suffer 2 stress and just get rid of 2 hope because I have them. I might as well use them. And we go back into our play. Now yellow is exactly what I need here, and it is hard, but I'm still going to push. And this is going to be super reckless. But I want those greens, and I want her more than anything. Yeah? No, because this says if I reveal skulls, I can clear things. So no, I'm going to use an action to come here. I'll come back to her later. And I am playing well respected. Investigate +2. So my green is 2 + 2 is 4. No, sorry, this is red. My red is 3 + 2 is 5. I could spend 2 more. But 5, the only thing that's going to kill me is a -3. But I have to draw twice. So wish me luck. Well, there's an instant fail. No, it's not. It's yellow. This is red. We're good. That's -1. But I have to reveal an additional. So I'm still drawing 2 more modifiers. +1 is 5. And 0. Great. So we are at 5. And I did reveal a skull, which means this goes away because I succeeded. But it also says if I reveal the skull or more, remove 2 from a lead at my setting, which there is at my setting. So the dance floor, which said originally the siphon was one of those clubs where everyone could get in, at least to the main floor. Flipping that over, and we find Maxim Wagner, the AR Soundspace enthusiast. It says maybe you should try the back area, but I doubt you would get in. So he's another follower. We are going to put 2 charisma tokens on this, and when we finish this, he would become a +1 permanent charisma, which is also very nice. Because I could potentially get him and then come back up here and get her. So that was my second action for the round, and now we progress the story because I have flipped both the bar and the dance floor. So flipping that to the back, it says, you spot your friend Andre standing close to a neon-lit corridor which leads deeper inside the club. Next to him are a blonde woman and a bald man. You shout, but your voice gets drowned by the music. Suddenly, you hear a loud sound behind you, and a group of people in uniform push through the crowd. They seem to be searching for someone. Andre looks over his shoulders, but your eyes do not meet. Then he and his companions quickly head down the neon-lit corridor. Game progression. Put the backstage setting into play from the staging deck. So we've got backstage, which looks like this right here. And on the back of this now it says at the top I need 2 random strangers in the dark, and at the bottom I need 2 random strangers in the dark. So that will come here. Let's push those up a little bit higher. Backstage is here, and now I need to find those strangers in the dark. So there are 4 strangers in the dark cards. I'm going to give those a shuffle. And then I'm going to place 2 above. Like that, and 2 below, like that. Then it says find all 5 regular enemy cards, which means these core loyalists and these freelance security officers. I'm going to draw one of them at random, which means they're going to show up at the location where I am currently. So let's move that over so we can add there a freelance security officer, and then the rest of these get shuffled into this regular encounter deck. All right, so let's take a look at what's changed up here. I've got this new backstage area with 4 strangers in the dark. It says the line between partygoers, hackers, and criminals is blurry at best. Will you be able to blend in? So I do have to find the hidden basement, which is definitely in here somewhere, somehow. Maybe somebody, one of the strangers in the dark will tell me where to find it. But let's talk about the new cards as well as the freelance security officer. First things first. These each get 3 of these tokens on them, like that. And you will see now this card, let me show you one of them up close, has a new feature on it, and that is this hack secondary ability and this extra sort of number up here. So here this is an investigate with perception. I need a 2 to pass the skill check, but if I don't get a 5 or higher, I'm going to trigger what's called the threat, and that's going to be whatever it shows here. So if I got a 2, 3, or 4, I would succeed at the test, but I would still trigger this threat, meaning I would lose 1 card. I'd have to discard a card from my hand or lose 1 hope. But I can take a hack action here to cover that with a cube, meaning then that later on, if I did trigger that threat, nothing bad would happen because I'd sort of canceled that threat out. And over here is our first enemy. Again, I need to fight. Every success that I get will knock this number down. So I need to get 2 successes to defeat her. But you'll see a couple of things. First things first, here it says that if I get a 4, I will succeed. But if I get a 2, there's this green icon. And this is the retreat icon I was talking about before. If I beat that person with that ability, or sorry, succeed with that level of ability when I'm fighting, that card will flip over. And then basically that enemy would then get placed back down, face down like that. And what that means is that later on, if we trigger an enemy attack by a skull, they will not attack because they have retreated. But it also means that we are not able to attack them to remove them from the game. And also, I mentioned before, during the encounter phase, all retreated enemies will flip face up. So we'll talk more about that when that happens, but also you will see that every enemy also has threat down here. Some of them will have the threat trigger before that had that red symbol like over here. She does not. So this one will never hurt me when I'm trying to attack her. Instead, every time we pull a skull token during the sort of modifier step, I will take 2 stress from this enemy. So she's not that big of a problem right now. We do have 1 action left, which could be getting support, but looking at my cards, pause before I continue. I do realize that I've forgotten something several times now, because I did succeed on this card to flip it. I did succeed on this card to completely flip it. So those 2 have both been flipped. I should have received resources for doing both of those as well. So let me put those out like that. Yes, then I've got 1 action left, but all I have left is hack. Although, if I successfully hack, and this has a... Oh, this card I can't hack. It's just going to automatically get a hack card or a hack token every time there's an encounter phase. Wow, there's no hack action on that card. Okay, so I can't do anything about that. It's just going to go away. Otherwise, I do have that other card that says when I draw a skull, I can place 2 hacks. I could do that, but that one right now, I can't use a hack action on. I can't hack her. I could fight her to retreat her, but she'll come right back in just a minute. And she needs a 4 to hit. I've got a 3 plus 2 is a 5. I could potentially hit her, and if I hit her with this, and therefore would have 1 or fewer cards in hand, I would get a hope. So you know what? Let's try it. I'm going to attack her without regards to losses. And I am going to use 1 flip of that token. So that's 3, 4, 5. Starting at a 5. It says I can suffer stress to add plus 2. And I'm about to, yeah, why not? Because I'm about to focus and refresh my cards anyway. So I'm at 7. Turning over 1 of these is plus 2. Wow, we're at 9. All right, well, then we do get 2 successes. I've just removed her from the game, so I do get a resource for doing that. And then I did succeed and have one or fewer cards in hand, so I will also get a hope for having done that, and that is the end of the round. But I am now out of cards, which means I instantly do trigger a focus action, but I should point out here confiscated goods. When you defeat an enemy or state, I can recover one action card at random from my discard pile, except for what I just played that turn. So not these two. I kind of want to get something for get support. Sorry, not those two, these two. Get support. Let's see. Double score 2 and 3. What's left in here? There's 2 +3s possibly. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to take that. We're not going to focus yet. We'll focus in the next round when needed. All right, that's that. That's the end of the round. Encounter phase, this is resolved. It doesn't do anything. That's just a passive negative that's there. I do place 1 hacking cube on that one. This goes up by 1. Any sleeping enemies wake up. There aren't any. These come back. Then I will draw a card, which is a rigged system again, meaning draw 2 additional cards. So we're going to draw first another rigged system. So now we're drawing 3 cards. One is corporate overreach that says, move the enemy with the most damage to your location. There isn't one, but it says follow up, draw an additional encounter card. So we're still drawing 3 cards. Data de-anonymization, you've seen that one before. That's the one that's going to cause me 1 stress. I've got 2 more cards to draw. Yay, darkest hour, but that's the last one in there. I get a hope. And then 1 last card, network analysis. You see I get to choose either 3 stress or spend a charge from an attribute support marker without effect. I don't want to get rid of this red because that's going to be good for fighting later on. So yeah, no. So I will suffer 3 stress, which means I am going to get rid of 3 hope because I don't want to focus without using that card. And that is the end of my turn. No, sorry, the end of the round. Start of the new turn means I'm going to use my first action to move here, which is kind of silly because I do need to come over here to start working on those. But I want to try and get some of these guys. And if I play this card and succeed, which is going to be a little bit tricky, but that's okay. I need 3. I got 2 to start, so I'm at 2 to start. And I can suffer a stress. I'm going to spend my last hope. This may be a bad idea to add 2 more. Then, but if I succeed and have 1 or fewer cards, I'll gain that hope back. So that's great. So I've got 4. I need 3 to succeed. If I succeed, I'll get both of those, which would be great. I flip this, and yay, +3. So we're at 7. Perfect. I get both of these, but more importantly, I also get Wang as my support, or my follower now. So I've got a +1 in my perception forever. And I get a focus from that kicking indoors. Sorry, not a focus, a hope. And now you will get to see my first focus. So I'm out of cards. This ticks down to 9. And from this deck, I'm going to draw back 9 cards, which is all but 1. And right now, I don't need this reckless fight because I am not fighting right now because, well, there's no enemies out. So let's take back all of the other cards that I've got. And now I will show you the tools. I've got 4 resources to spend. Actually, that's a lie because I just finished her. I've got 5 resources to spend. So looking at here, Stolen DefSec Smartwatch says, I treat the printed number on regular skulls as +1. That's amazing. Also, when you reveal the epic fail, I could recycle this tool. It means put it back under my card to be bought again later. To treat that epic fail as a regular skull -1. That's amazing. Tilidophene 800. When you discard 1 or more cards from your hand, gain a hope. Reserves of strength. Trash a card. Recover 3 cards from your discard pile. So that gets me more life, basically. Then, self-defense training, you may perform an additional fight action. Right now, we don't need that. So yeah, I'm going to take that Stolen DefSec Smartwatch because I do have 5 resources. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the ability to get rid of that thing is pretty awesome, at least currently so. And it's worth mentioning on that card that said trash the card. Trashing a tool means you flip it face down and it stays that way permanently unless you have some other card that says untrash or bring back that tool in some way. So that's that. Let me slide this over because that is a tool. Great. So that was my second action because I moved and I activated that. So my last action is simply going to be moving over here like that. Yes, we are done for the round. Nothing happens. This says suffer 1 stress. Yeah, I think I've got another card in here that's like fight only or fight. Yeah, fight only. I don't need that right now. Keep that hope. Then this gets a cube and this gets a cube, means that one goes away. And I'm pretty sure it says placing enough hacking cubes to fill the final hacking cube slot on a card counts as completing a task. So even though I didn't do that, I'm assuming that means I get a resource. And if that's not true, you'll see a message down below in the subtitles, but I will play it that way for right now. Then this ticks up 1 more. And these flip back over. We draw another one of these, which says, oh, we got a bad guy. So the bad guy's going to come join us at our location. This is a new bad guy. He only takes a value 1 to succeed on the fight, but he will only retreat as a 4 or higher. He has 4 health, but he's also got a horrible condition that I can't move when he's at my location. So as long as this core loyalist is not retreated, I am stuck at this location. But right now I don't care because I want to take care of these cards anyway. He's got a threat value of 1, which is not a big deal. There's potentially 1 more skull in here. There's potentially 1 more -3, potentially 1 more +3. There's potentially an auto success, double succeed. So I'm not super worried currently. I want to investigate some stuff. And they're all investigate with green, which I got a lot of, plus an additional 1. And I did just defeat that state, so I get to draw a card back from here as well. But that didn't happen until after, so never mind. That's good. Yes, I'm going to go for this card, investigating. And let's see what I want to play. I don't need extra stuff because I got extra stuff that I can do. Let's play this one. This investigation adds an additional 2 value for every enemy. So that's a 2. Plus I'm starting at 2 + 1 is 3. So I'm at 5 already, which is what I need to avoid the threat. And I am going to use one of these because I've got lots of them. So I'm at 7 to start. I turn over. Ooh. Yes, that's an auto success, means an additional success. So I've got 1 regular, 1 from this, and 1 from this is 3 automatically. I succeed there and get a resource. Whoops. Flipping the action that I just took, and now flipping this card. And this stranger is Lil and Alexis, activists for sexual minorities. It says, ever been to this part of the club? We don't want to be rude, but safe spaces for robosexuals are rare enough, and we don't like people staring. All right, so we're going to add to them 2 charisma and 1 of these courage tokens. They have a threat value of a single stress, but otherwise nothing happens. When I clear them, I'd get a resource, but that's it. They don't become followers or anything else. They're just a way for me to get extra charisma and courage, which currently I don't really need to have. Then, the second action. I wouldn't mind fighting him, just to flip him over in case something triggers. Maybe, but right now this is a 0, a +3, a -3, or a -1 skull. And I have, this fight isn't bad. Where's the one that says, yeah, this one. I'm going to investigate with this card. It says I got a +2 to investigate. So I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 investigate. I'm drawing 2 modifiers. But if I get a skull, I remove 2 secrets. But then he's going to hit me. So let me fight first, and then I will play that. Let's see. I don't want to draw extra stuff. Let's fight here. So this is +0, but I've got 1, 2, 3, and I will use my second of those. to do an additional 2, so that's 5. He only needs a 1, but a 4 will flip him. And if I hit twice. So I got 5. If this is a -3, we still hit him, but he doesn't flip. Oh, it's a skull. So we're -1, we're at 4, but that means I have to draw again, which means, pause for a second, I have to reset this because we've turned them all over. So all of these get flipped back over. These get mixed back in. We remove 3 of those at random. And then we make a grid out of the rest of them one more time. And I still have to draw one more from that skull with my value still at a 4. -2 is 2. All right, so I do hit him twice. All right, so he takes 2 damage, but he doesn't retreat. And I did draw a skull, so he's going to hit me for 1 stress, but I'll block that with a hope. And then, unfortunately, I still want to do that investigation. Where's the one that gets me stuff if I fail? Yeah. So that was my second action. My third action is this. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Where did I put the one that gets me this one? Investigate +2. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a 2, 5. I'm okay with that. We're going to stay with the 5. And I'm drawing twice. We're down to 2. And we're down to 0. So I fail and I take a threat. So I have to trash something. I'm going to trash the hack card. Well, because Larks is not exactly the best hacker. I just remembered that this card makes the skulls a +1, not a -1. So he did actually get flipped over. He did get flipped over because I hit him with a 2. I hit him with a 2, and then that -1 should have been a +1. So the -1 is canceled, +1 is 4 actually. So the 4 would have flipped him, but he did take the 2 damage. Which means right now I failed, but I still have that threat from him hitting me, so I'm using that now instead of my hack card. Yes. Okay, but I did not draw a skull from that. I did not succeed on that. That is the end of the round, and if I did make any mistakes, I will have fixed it in subtitles already, but I think I figured that all out. Then, encounter phase, resolve abilities, I suffer 1 stress, so now I will lose that hack card. I will place 1 hack cube there. And I think that I may have cheated before. Thinking about it, the resources say when I complete a task. And these things clearing on their own are not me completing them. So I think I've taken 2 additional resources beyond what I should have, which realistically means that I shouldn't have that, but I think that I'm not going to try and retcon things now. Yeah, no, I'm not going to try and retcon things now. We'll leave it at that. But let's continue. I've now added the hack cube, increasing surveillance by 1. We're up to 5. And it would be 1 additional surveillance, except he is retreated, so he doesn't count. But then now he is no longer retreated. Like that. We draw 1 more encounter card and flip these back over. Unexpected complications, we saw that one before. Rolling. Ooh, that's a double attribute. That means red or blue are both hard. That's not good because, you know what? Blue I don't care about because I'm not hacking. Red only matters if I'm fighting him, but as long as I'm doing other things. So let's focus on this Strangers in the Dark right now. I need to investigate. That investigates a good one. No, this investigates a great one because it says if I succeed by 2 or more, I get an additional impact. So I could get all 3 with this card. If I succeed with a 4, Yeah. All right. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Flipping a tile is a 0. That's great. I do succeed by 2 or more. We clear all 3 of those. Now I do get a resource from that. This Strangers in the Dark is going to flip over. And we found Stefania, the eccentric body hacking activist. Says, the music sucks. I'm headed to the Hain. So she gets 2 tech and 1 of the courage tokens. Again, she's a nothing. She is also threat-based. Right now, I don't really care about her, but I can't go anywhere unless I beat up this guy and flip him over. So, let's see what I can do. That was an action. I'd like to fight. Yeah, I'm going to have to do this one. All right, we are fighting. Remember, fighting is hard, so a skull is an auto-fail. But if I get a skull here, it's going to automatically place 2 cubes on a card wherever I'd like to. Which means potentially removing that would be nice. And the suffering stress is not as bad as this horrible potential auto-fail. Reckless, so I got to do it twice. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to start. 4, 3. That's like the worst situation because I didn't pull skulls, and 3 means I hit him, but he's only taking 1 hit. Unfortunately, that is the end of my second action. He doesn't hit me though because there's no threat and I didn't pull a skull, so that's good, I guess. But I gotta get rid of him or I can't do anything else. So I might as well play High Hopes, which is +2, so I've got a 5. If I succeed, I'll get a hope. 5 plus 2 is 7. I do succeed. He's gone. For my last action, I do get a resource for beating him. And I do get a hope for my High Hopes. Okay, then I get a stress, which means this goes away or my hope goes away. Let's go hope away. But that gets its 3rd cube and goes away. Then this also gets 1 cube, so it's still there for 1 more round. This goes up to 6. We're getting close to our first one of these. Luckily, this has been going real slow. There are a lot of cards in here that bump the surveillance faster, and we haven't seen one yet. Knock on wood or purple surface. Then I'm going to draw a card, which is profiling. Here we go. Increase the surveillance by 1 or suffer stress twice. I've been doing okay with surveillance, so let's push that to a 7. Like that. And my first action is I am moving here. I'd love to have some of that stuff, but I'm not wasting actions on it until I know that I need something. And I'm going to kick down a door, which means I'm investigating for 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not adding stress for points. That's 5. And we flip. That is a 4, but it's not because I have DefSec. I'm at a 6. Drawing again. 7. All right, so I'm at 7. There's attacking, but nobody's there to attack. So we're at 7. We pass. We don't hit the threshold. I score 2. So we're going to 1 like that as my second action. And I will need to focus again. Yes. So this goes to 8. So we're putting 2 cards away. I'm going to put in the card that's a hack only because I haven't been doing a whole lot of hacking, and that's going away next round anyway. And I think the brutal fight, one of them. Analyze encounter deck or double fight. I'd rather have double fight than the encounter deck. 1 like that. Yeah, and we're going to investigate one more time. There's only 1 there, so I want one that gets me stuff. Actually, let's play the any task one, maybe? Hold on. No, I want this well respected because I'm drawing 2 things. Already I've got 2, 3, 4, 5. I only need a 2 to succeed. -3 is the worst I can get unless it's an auto fail. And I can actually trash that to save that if I want to. But if I draw a skull, I also take 2 secrets from here at the same time. So let's do that. We're drawing twice. I'm starting with 2, 3, 4, 5. Auto fail. But I'm going to get rid of my DefSec watch. So that's a -1. That's a 4 and a draw again. All right, that's what it just says. Count it as the regular skull. Yes, so that's 4. +1 is 5. So that's done. And because I reveal the skull, that gets 2 down like that. And Alaya Amadou says, self-made cyborg. Those noobs have messed with the wrong people. They should have stayed at the front. Find one random copy of Hidden Basement in the staging deck. It appears at the opposite location. All right, so up at the top, first on Amadou gets one of these guys. And then I'm going to find a Hidden Basement. There are 2 of them. We're going to take one randomly. And that gets found up here. And now the goal is to find and flip the Hidden Basement. So I'm not done yet. I got to get up there and flip it. All right. And that was my third action, I believe. No. Yes, it was, because I tried once and then again. That's my third action. Means this does nothing, is now gone because the second cube gets placed on it. Surveillance goes up 1, which means we trigger this suffering 1 stress. And I will get rid of the big fight. I think that may be a mistake right now, but that's what I'm doing. Then these get flipped back over, and I draw a card. Profiling. Increase surveillance by 1 or suffer 2 stress. I will increase surveillance by 1. And we take our next turn. I'm coming here. Now, investigate is blue. My blue is really, really low, so I want to try and get some support first. Yeah. If I can get a support that gets me double support, could be nice. That one. There's no enemies. Yeah, let's play this one. Get support. I may suffer a stress to gain 2. So I'm at 3. This makes it a 5. I only need a 1. Yeah, but there's still potentially in a -3 out. So let's suffer a stress. I'm going to get rid of the fight hack. Yeah, fight hack goes away. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for her. Drawing a token, of course, +3 is 8. So I do succeed twice, and I am going to take, blue and red? Or blue and blue? Yeah, blue and red so I can fight better later if I have to. That's action 1. Oops, this should have 2 skills on it. Or sorry, 2 secrets on it. Then I need to investigate there. The Hidden Basement. It says, you've heard crazy stories of what happens in the basement of the siphon. All right, so I am investigating. I do have some blue help now, but I'd like some more. I need a 4. So even if I use this help, I'm at 3. That's not great. So, investigate. I'm going to play High Hopes, because that gets me 2. So that's 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 when I flip that. All right, let's see what we get. Of course, -3 is a 2. I don't get it, and I don't succeed, and that's that for my second action. All right. Good news is -3, -3, -2, -2, -1, -1. The only thing left is the skull. 2 skulls. But there's also a +2, a +3, and 2 and zeros. But there's no enemies out. There's no way I'm succeeding big, but I'm going all in. Investigate, no addition. So I'm only getting 3. So I need to pull a +1 or a +3 or the auto success here. Wish me luck. No, that's a skull. That nothing happens. That's the wasted waste. All right, that's that. Nothing here. This goes up to 10. Next thing triggers at 16, so we're okay. Then these flip back over. We draw again. Invasion of privacy says increase surveillance by 1, and then draw another encounter card. So we're at 11. Another encounter card. Profiling. Increase surveillance or suffer to stress. I don't want to suffer stress. 12. Like that. And now we go again. I am going to play investigate. This one right here. There's no enemies here. The best I can... Oh, I only have a 1 right now. That's not going to happen. Yeah, let's play forget support. No. No, I'm focusing. So 7. I only have 2 to spend. What do I get with 2? 4, 2, 4, 5. The best I can do is this. Recover 3 cards by trashing this. Yeah, why not? All right, so those get discarded. I am down to 7 now. So we are putting 3 away. Those go away. I paid for that with resources. Then 7. Yeah, I think I'm putting the same things back again. Fight, hack. Fight. No. Hold on. Yeah, let me keep that angry fight. I'll get rid of the hack, the fight hack, and the other fight, or the other fight hack? Yeah, the other fight hack. All right, so I got 7 cards, and I want to visit Stefania one more time because I can't do a 4 investigate unless something happens down here. But let's go to Stefania one more time. Getting support. I only need to do it once, but I need to add some stuff to it. Ooh, that would be great. Reckless means I'm drawing twice. If I get a skull, I get to take those off right now. So I'm looking here at that. I've got get support 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sticking with that. Revealing 1, 2, no skull, but I do succeed to get that. She goes bye-bye. So I also get a resource for clearing that. A skull would have been great because it would have meant that was cleared, but now I get to reset my grid. And then I want to search the basement again. Now, I want to investigate. I want an additional thing. Suffer stress to add 2. We're going to do that. We're definitely going to do that. I'm getting rid of this fight card. So +2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need a 4 to succeed. -1. We're at 4. +3. Yes. All right, so I succeed plus an additional succeed. They go away. Hidden basement flips over. You've heard crazy stories of what happens. Well, here we find out what happens. Oh, there's a refugee housing unit hidden in the basement. It says club culture is about more than base and drugs. It's also about giving systemic discrimination the middle finger. Completed. Ask the refugees for help. Deal 4 damage to an enemy at this setting. So if I now put 2 hope on here, if I can complete this by taking these 2 hope off, this will also do 4 damage to an enemy at that location. So let's see what happens because we did just flip the hidden basement. And it says, you hear a voice behind you shout, "Sir, they headed in here!" A small man wearing a Nubicon corporate security uniform enters the dark room, flanked by a group of officers. They have you cornered. The man looks surprised as your eyes meet, as if he had expected someone else. However, he quickly regains his composure and says with a friendly smile, My name is Mark, and Nubicon would thank you for your cooperation in this matter. We are looking for one of our employees named Andre Picard, and we think you might know him. Game progression, find Mark's Steelskin cast bar in the staging deck, appears at my location. Then I'm going to find the dimly lit security door in the staging deck, and that is at the siphon bottom. All right, so let me do that backwards. Here's the dimly lit security door. It says it could potentially be an exit. A master locksmith can open a Mueller & Bock security door in 10 seconds. The average chump needs a 5-minute tutorial video. This is a hard task, means all skulls or fails. I need 5 secrets. It's an investigate 4 with a 6 threat of a surveillance increase, which is big. But I can hack that for 5. Anyway, that goes down here like that. And now Mark Steelskin Caspar is a fight 3-5. The 5 triggers a double stress. He's got 10 health. And it says confrontation again. I can't move away from him unless he's flipped over. And the only way to flip over this one, it doesn't happen from the fight action. I have to hack 3-5. And once I fill this in with 3 hacks, he will flip over. So we'll see what happens. Because I do remember, and I think it may be in my discard, but I could bring it back with strength. I've got a card that would add hack if I fail. And I haven't been paying attention to this, and I think I activated once to get this blue token and then again for that location. Sorry if there was any jump there, just checking. Yes, I used 2 actions as expected. So I've got one more action. I want to fight him. And I'm going to fight him with anger issues. Anger issues says, hold on, I need to finish the game now. Defeat him or find a way to escape, which is clearly in the security door, but I am fighting him. I've got a base value 3. I've got a base value 3, courage, plus 2 is 5, and 1 is 6. I need 3 to beat him. If I reveal skulls, though, he's going to take 2 damage anyway. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With an additional win here, reckless means I'm drawing twice. 1, yay. I'm at 5. An instant fail. That's double problems. Because what that means is 2 things. Number 1, I failed, but at least because I revealed skulls, I get to place 2 of those there. But then he triggers twice because I pulled 2 skulls, which means I'm taking 4 stress. Which means 1, 2, 3, and then I'm required to focus, coming back to 6, and now I want all my fight cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe it gets support. Yeah, 5, 6. I don't think I'm doing that. I'm going to try and take him out. And I have to get rid of 1 more, which will be that one of those. This one. Good, that's that. Then encounter phase. Nothing's here. This goes to 13. These flip back over. That would have flipped when I just fought him. Those flip back over like that. And then I have to increase, this 1 more time because he is at my location. So that's actually a 14 out of 13. Action trackers are back. Nobody's retreated. I draw a card, which is, another guy fighting me. Also confrontation, so I am really very locked in at this location, but that's fine. Just means if I draw a skull, they both hit me, but that's okay. I'm still pounding on this guy. Whoops, that should have gone in there. So I do have that instead of that, I think. Sure. All right, then there's only 1 more skull in there. Potentially, it could be here, but there's only potentially 1 more skull in there. Let's see what else I got. Fight of nothing but additional hit. Fight that could do hacking, which doesn't really help me. Any task plus 2. and fight with analyze, which is interesting. All right, I'm going to do the anger issue fight again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Flipping this one down to 4. And this one, double success. Great. So I do succeed with a 4. Problem is, oh no, that's a, hold on, let me check on threats with that epic success. Yeah, you immediately exceed all threat levels. So I don't trigger his threat. I do succeed, and that's 1, 2, 3 hits to him. So we're up to 5. We need 10 to beat him. That goes away. But now I am going to trash this to bring that card back. That was my first action. I also want to bring back a card. When do I get 3, right? Yeah. Bring back a card that's going to help me get more support to fight him some more. And then, I don't really need any more of those, but let's do this get support. Oh, actually, that's better anyway. I'm reading the crowd, which says I get +2 for each enemy. So that's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 on a get support. So I've got 7 on this card, plus an additional success if I do so. And I'm flipping there is 7, so I do get 2 successes. I don't think I need that yellow, but that's fine. Yay. That was my second action. My third action is, one more time, anger issues. And it didn't say anything about not using the one you just did. Nope. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Drawing twice, 5, 4. I still hit 2 times, but he will hit me once. So I do 2 more damage. He's now up to 7 damage, but I take 2 stress from that. I'll get rid of that, get support, and I will get rid of that. That was my third action. I didn't draw any skulls, so he didn't hit me at all. Then, nothing here. This goes up 3 times. Once normal, and then 2 for each of the enemies. Means I cleared that stress threshold. Means I'm losing 2 more cards. Like that. Keeping this one. These flip back over. No enemies were turned over. This comes out. Corporate Overreach says, move the enemy with the most damage to my location. They already are. If it already is, it attacks you. So he's hitting me for 2 more stress. Which means 1, we have to refresh for 5. Taking 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I still have to get rid of 1 card. I will get rid of this one. And then it says follow up, draw 1 additional encounter card. Great. Advanced surveillance. At the beginning of the encounter phase, 2 surveillance. It is a hack. But I don't think I'm wasting time right now. I need to kick this guy out of here. What do you know? I got some more anger issues. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, 7, 8. Awesome. That's 2 more damage. So we are at 9. And then let's hit. What's the next biggest one I got? This one. Fight +3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Drawing once. 7, 8, 9. Boom. We hit him. We defeat him. Bye-bye, Mark Steele Caspar. That gets me 1 resource, but it doesn't matter because we have defeated Mark Caspar, flipping this over. says, at first the freelance security officers were annoyed when you didn't answer their questions, but what surprised them was that you fought back. Few people dared to attack someone with a stunner. This moment of surprise helped you and the other folks in the back room to overcome Mark, breaking through to the main dance floor. In the ensuing chaos, you slip out through the club's front entrance. Game progression, read conclusion 2. So there are 4 conclusion cards in here, but I just got conclusion 2, which says, as you exit the club, you hear the faint sound of a police siren. Maybe you should wait for the police to arrive so you can tell them about the events at the club. Then again, those freelance security officers surely have some old friends on the force. Before you can come to a decision, you hear a soft voice behind you. Hey, you must be who Andre's been talking about. As you turn around, you see the bald man you'd seen earlier with Andre at the club. Further behind him is the blonde woman, pushing through a crowd of partygoers who escaped from the club with you. The bald man smiles and offers his hand for a handshake. I'm Nairi. Andre is a colleague of mine at Nubicon. Nairi's cut off by the blonde woman. We can't trust them, and I cannot be seen by the police. She urges Nairi to leave. As she steps closer, you get a better look at her face and recognize her as Magdalena Schneider. You've seen her face on an electoral poster in Kreuzberg some time ago. Nairi firmly replies, Andre trusted them. This is good enough for me. Discontent, but without enough time to argue, Magdalena nods and gestures for you to follow her onto a narrow street. You hastily rush down the dark alley which exits into a main street. Together with your newfound companions, you get into a self-drive cab they called, driving off into the twilight of an early morning. Campaign progression, note in the campaign log, Mark Kaspar remembers you. Proceed to conclusion 4. So already that's cool. I don't have a campaign log right now, but it's interesting to see that there will be things that are carrying over in the story as you play through. Moving on to conclusion 4, it says, you drive through the cold Berlin night in your cozy self-drive cab. Breaking the silence, Nairi says, I'm so sorry, Lena. I should not have gotten you involved in this. Magdalena responds quickly, don't be. If it's anyone's fault, it's Nubicon's fault. She continues somber. But why would they risk illegally raiding a nightclub? Nairi hesitates. Today at lunch, Andre told me he'd been working on a new project for Nubicon's genetic research department. What he saw had made him uncomfortable. He'd reviewed a data set that included both your and my name and huge chunks of our medical history. Lena raises her eyebrows in surprise and asks, that sounds highly illegal. Nairi responds, it probably is. Andre wanted to tell us more tonight at the club. Lena thinks for a moment and then replies with newfound determination. We need to find Andre. Do you know his address in the Haven? Nairi nods and turns around to give the car new directions. This is the end of the demo, but your continued adventure awaits. Next episode will lead you to Berlin's solarpunk-inspired green tech hub, Haviland Haven. Here you'll find the first lead to uncover Nubicon's dystopian scheme. So that is the end of the sort of demo chapter that I've been given for this preview. As far as components go, I can't really say anything except for that I do really like the artwork in this game. It's this kind of painterly, beautiful artwork. I don't know how to describe it. There's no like hard borders on everything. Everything is just sort of smooth, shaped-based painting. I don't know what to call it. I'm not the art guy, but I do really enjoy the art direction of this game. The iconography, the colors, everything is very clear to me as I play. Now, I'm not sure with color blindness how this red, blue, green, and yellow play, but they do all have unique symbology, although at a far glance you may or may not be able to see that super easily. The way that this token system physically works very well. I'll talk more about mechanically how it works in my final thoughts. But yeah, I'm a big fan of how everything looks, how everything sort of interacts on the table. I will show you very quickly the other character. You've seen 2 of his cards in my deck this playthrough. But Dennis here, Yilmaz, AI software engineer, you can see he's got, comparing him to Larks, she was 2-2-3-1 and he was 2-1-2-3. So they're both the same perception, but she's got much more charisma and he's got much more, well, sorry, not much more charisma, a little more charisma and a lot of fighting or courage. He's got a little bit of courage, very little charisma, but lots of tech. So his thing is definitely hacking. But he has a lot of these cards that do analyze the grid. And what that means is I can flip over two of the tokens in the grid and then remove one of them into the archive, shuffling the other ones back. And if I don't want to remove one, then I can just get hope. But what that means is I can constantly be pulling out negative modifiers with his systems. He's also super focused on hacking. He also has these abilities to sort of boost different skills. So here, this analyzed behavior, he can add 2 charisma or 2 technology during the next task. He's got another one here, 2 perception and 2 technology, 2 courage and 2 technology. So he's got these ideas that he's sort of boosting other people's abilities. So he's sort of a support character and also sort of dealing with or helping with the modifiers in that modifier system. So that's a really cool support character, especially if he's working with the other character. This one here gives an additional success or impact for the following task. Same thing here, you can recycle this card. This is a tool, putting it away to giving an additional impact to the next task. Lots of really cool different ways to interact with things than what you saw just now with Larks. And actually, I'll mention it here. I believe Steve from the Co-op Guild has a playthrough of this solo game with his playthrough or using that character. So if you'd like to see that, definitely check out his playthrough. But that's basically all I have to say about the components. Maybe back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game itself. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. I do have to apologize up front for all of the sort of small little mistakes I made along the way, but I do think that the playthrough is still sort of representative of how the game plays, so I do hope that you sort of understand more about the game from that playthrough. But let's go ahead and get into what I think about this game. Now, granted, I was given access only to a very small piece of this game, so there's a lot that I'm sort of having to assume or guess about what the game's going to be, but I'll talk about sort of all of that as I go through my thoughts. But the first thing I want to say is up front in the introduction, I did mention that I've sort of been very curious about this sort of wave after wave of different LCG games like Arkham Horror, the card game, Lord of the Rings card game, Marvel Champions, lots of these FFG sort of legacy, not legacy, but LCG games. And I've never really gotten into them. Arkham Horror I still want to try, but I'm not a huge fan of the theme, and every time I sort of look to get into it, I'm sort of daunted by what I see. Lord of the Rings I tried, and it was way too mechanical and not sort of story or adventure enough for me, so that kind of went away. Marvel Champions I enjoyed quite a bit, but I got into it late, and I was worried that I was going to spend a ton of money trying to catch up on everything. But also Marvel Champions to me feels more like a sort of boss battler kind of game than an adventure kind of story game. And this one definitely focuses on the adventure side of things. And I have to say that I am really enjoying what I've seen so far from this game, and I can't wait to see more. So let me sort of talk about what it is that I enjoy about this game. First things first, before I get into the game, one sort of big component of these LCGs is this idea of sort of deck construction, where before you get into the game, you have to sort of create the deck for your character. And each of these different games does it in a slightly different way. Some of them you're sort of taking any cards that you want to, following a sort of formula to build your own deck. Some of them are saying, you know, take a deck of a character and take a deck of a skill and mix those together, and that's your starting deck, and so on. I tend not to be a fan of deck construction in general. Now, I know a lot of people feel the same way, and there are websites online where you can basically net deck, which means use a deck that somebody else has already created rather than trying to create your own deck. But I feel like that sort of takes away from some of the heart of the game, because part of the game is sort of mixing cards to get to what you're going to. Now, this game does things slightly easier, at least from my side of things, in that you are starting with a character and taking the deck for that character. Now, in the case of the solo mode, you also get 2 cards from another character, but those 2 cards are going to be the specific 2 cards from that deck, not just any 2 cards. Now, once we have more characters, that might mean there's a little bit more mixing allowed or more decision involved. But what this game seems to do, and I'm not sure yet because, again, this is just a prototype of the sort of first scenario or first chapter in the story, but I'm expecting that I start with this sort of deck of cards for my character, and then as I play through the game, I'm probably going to be adding more things into my deck, therefore constructing a new deck sort of from game to game as I play. And that kind of deck construction works a whole lot better for me because I have some kind of idea of what's going on. I've played this deck and I know how this deck works. Now I'm going to add this card to see if it can tweak the deck in a specific direction. And to me, that's a lot more sort of focused. It helps me figure out which cards I want to focus on based on what I want my deck to do. Now, I understand that's the same as regular deck construction, except for me, regular deck construction is like, blah, here's a bunch of cards, now figure them out. Whereas this says, here's the core of your character, now tweak that character to become what it is that you want it to become. And I appreciate that. That's something that I've seen in games, and I haven't played it yet, but I really want to, but games like Earthborn Rangers, where you also sort of start off as some kind of character that you're then tweaking throughout gameplay. And that works a lot better for me. It's sort of more akin to a deck builder than it is to deck construction, simply because it's happening sort of through the game as you play over multiple scenarios. So already it's pulling me in from that aspect of things. Then thematically, I already talked about this theme here is very interesting to me. Now, granted, the first chapter, I don't get a lot of story yet because we're basically looking for a guy. We go to a club, we're looking for the guy, we get confronted by a bad guy, we run away. The end. And there's not a whole lot of story, so I can't tell you how good the story is going to become, but at least this sort of sprinkled breadcrumbs that I've seen so far is a world that I'm interested in. Right? It's realistic, but it's sort of action sci-fi kind of a world, but not this sort of dark, weird, dystopian cyberpunk thing, but this sort of bright future potential with this sort of evil tech people that are trying to do something that we're trying to sort of fight against. And that idea and that theme really works for me here. So it allows me to sort of build a character and work through this sort of story, this adventure, in a way that means something to me. But then let's talk more mechanically, because the mechanics or the mechanisms here are going to be important. I don't want to play a game if I don't enjoy what I'm doing turn to turn as I play. This has a lot of fun things going on. So the majority of this game is going to play out through basically skill checks. Every sort of action or task that you're interacting with during gameplay is going to be a skill check based on skills you have. But then every time you take a skill check or make a skill check, you're starting with whatever your skill value is, but then you're adding things to it. So as you're going through, you might collect these tokens by interacting with characters that sort of give you boosts in specific skills. So you can use one of those. Sometimes you might even recruit sort of allies or followers along the way that give you a sort of innate boost to some specific skill. But then on top of that, the sort of two main things that are connected to each of these skill tests is your hand of cards, and then this really cool sort of modifier deck token system. Let me talk about the cards first, and then we'll talk about the modifier. The grid is what they call it, modifier token system. But first, after deciding to make a task, to attempt a task, I'm going to check my skill. I'm going to add one of those follower tokens or whatever the support tokens that I need if I have them and I want to use them. And then I'm allowed to play a card. And the cards are what makes the characters unique, because each character is sort of going to have different skills, but also different focuses and different sort of ways that you can break the rules in unique ways to help you accomplish the things that you need to accomplish. So basically, the character that I played through in the playthrough is risky. She's reckless. She's pushing her luck more and more and more. But then there's a lot of cards that give you sort of payoff when something bad happens. You still succeed in something, which is cool. The other character that I showed you has the ability to manipulate that grid of modifiers, which is also really cool. But on top of that, just the normal card play will sort of raise the value of your skill threshold so that you have more chance of passing a specific check. Or instead of raising the value, it will give you double success if you manage to succeed on a given check. Or things that allow you to play extra cards to raise your value, or things that give you extra value to that skill threshold if there are enemies at your location, and so on. So you're trying to play these different cards to give you different kinds of boosts towards these sort of tasks that you're trying to accomplish. But then after you've done all of this stuff to sort of boost that value to wherever you want it to, you're then going to turn over a token in this grid. And those tokens are going to range from -3, -2, -1, to then +1, 2, and 3, with a 0 as well. 2 of each of those. And then you've got 3 -1 skull tokens, 1 auto-fail skull token, and 1 auto-success that will actually give you a second success for free automatically if you draw that token. So there's this extra element of push your luck. How far do I need to drive my value up to sort of make sure that even if I turn over a negative thing, I can still succeed? Vice versa, how far do I have to push that I can sort of potentially push my luck and get something if I turn over the right token in that grid? But then always in the back of my mind, there is an auto success, there is an auto fail. So even if I push my value super high, I could still fail. And even if I don't spend anything and I have a really low value, I could still succeed if I draw that auto success. The -1 skulls also sort of cascade. So if I turn over a -1, that's -1 to my value, but I have to turn over another token. Also the skulls, I haven't talked about this, and I will talk about this a little bit later. There are enemies that are attacking you. And the skulls is the main way that those enemies are going to attack. Anytime I turn over a skull in the grid, the enemies will then trigger whatever their attack is, and or sort of chase after me if they're not currently at my location. So this grid is interesting on top of just the idea of sort of these random modifiers, because the grid is a 4x4 grid of tokens, plus 3 tokens. So there are 19 tokens, and you're removing 3 of them every time you reset the grid. So 3 of those tokens you don't know, but they are not in there. So it could be that I'm hoping there's a +3 and both +3s have been pulled out of that grid. Or I could be scared of skulls, but it could turn out that the auto-fail has been pulled out of that grid for that current setup. And then as you're turning over these modifiers, each time you take a check, those modifiers stay face up. So you can see what's been pulled and what hasn't been pulled, except you don't know what those 3 missing tokens are. But that means as you're taking these checks or as you're completing these tasks, you start to notice that, well, I see a lot of negative, that means I'm more likely to succeed. Or, well, I see a lot of positive, so I'm probably going to fail unless I boost my value much higher. And just having this extra bit of information really makes for an interesting sort of decision space about when to push your luck, when not to push your luck, which tasks to attempt at which time, to sort of hope that you can get better successes or not. Because again, some of these tasks are removing secrets which will sort of progress the story. But some of these tasks are getting more of those support tokens and those followers to make sure that future tasks are stronger. So this whole idea of which action do I take when, how many cards, not how many cards, but when do I play a card? I can only ever play 1. When do I use my support tokens? How important is it for me to get a follower? How important is it for me to spend extra cards to take stress, meaning discarding cards, in order to boost my value at a specific time? When should I play a card that boosts my value versus when should I play a card that gives me multiple successes should I succeed? All of it tied into this sort of semi-randomness and semi-kind of known information from the modifier tokens in the grid really makes for a very interesting system. And that's just the sort of core skill stuff, or the core sort of task stuff. There's also, every time I complete a task, I get a little resource token. There's a system called the focus system, which kind of gives me Gloomhaven vibes, although the modifier tokens kind of does that as well. In Gloomhaven, when you run out of cards, you have to rest and get your cards back, throwing away a card. Same thing is happening here, although you're not throwing it away because it could come back in a future rest or future focus turn. But when you're out of cards, or when you decide you have cards that you don't want to play, you can discard those cards and then be out of cards to refresh in what's called a focus. Every time you focus, you're going to turn down your endurance, which is basically the number of cards you have in your hand. So every time you refresh your deck, or refresh your hand realistically because your entire deck is in your hand, up to the number of that endurance is going to tick down 1. So every time you refresh your cards, you're getting 1 card less back into your hand. But you get to choose which of those cards come back into your hand. So maybe right now I'm focusing on hacking, or maybe right now I'm focused on investigation, or maybe right now I'm focused on fighting. And the cards that I don't need for those things, I can leave in a discard without really having any problem for me. So it's this really interesting idea of my hand is slowly shrinking, but I can still sort of tweak what's in it so that I can use it to the best of my ability in the next tasks before I have to refresh the deck again. But also during that process, those resource tokens that I mentioned you get for completing tasks can then be spent to add tools. I think every character starts, at least in the current situation, with 4. I think it may be 8 tools in the actual game. But these tools are going to give you unique abilities, unique one-off, like major actions and things that you can do. And in order to use these tools or to sort of get access to these tools, you need to spend resource tokens. So you're trying to complete as many tasks as you can before doing one of these focus or refresh actions, so you can spend all of those resources to get a tool that's going to make you more powerful for the next sort of wave of tasks that you're completing. And then through all of this, you've also got enemies that are chasing after you. You've also got some skills that have threats on them. And what that means is some of the enemies in some of these locations or things that you're interacting with have threat, means even if you succeed on that task, there's a higher value that if you don't sort of exceed that second value, you will get hurt or attacked in some way, often with stress or with surveillance, which I'll explain in just a minute as well. But then some of these enemies have special abilities as well. Like several of the enemies will lock you into a location, so you can't run away. You can't move until you make the enemy retreat. Now, some of the enemies have special threshold that if your the skill check value is high enough, you'll flip that enemy over, so they're inactive for the round until they come back the next round. Some of the enemies require you to take a hacking skill or hacking task in order to flip them over to keep them from sort of hurting you or chasing you. But the problem is when they're retreated, you also can't attack them. So if you're trying to defeat them and you retreat them, well, that's great because now they're not pursuing you, but you also can't do anything about them. But it does mean that those ones that have you sort of locked to a location release you so you can run around. So it really does feel like you're not just fighting some card, you really are being pursued by a character that's chasing you around the world, because you can retreat and then go somewhere else, and then at the end of the round they'll come back unretreated, and if you pull a skull that activates that enemy, they will chase you to the location where you are. So there's definitely a real feeling of location meaning something in this game, as well as just the cards being cards that you're interacting with, which is very nice to see as well. But I mentioned surveillance. There's this whole extra level of encounters and bad things happening. There is definitely a ticking timer. This is not like play as well as you can, as long as you can, slowly working your way through things, because at the end of every round, the surveillance is going to tick up by 1. And if you're at a location with enemies, the surveillance will tick up an additional 1 for each enemy at your location. And at certain thresholds of that surveillance value, more bad things will happen. You have to discard cards, enemies might show up, things might become harder, and eventually if that surveillance hits a specific value based on the difficulty level you're playing at, the game will end with a negative ending rather than a positive ending. And I want to put an aside right here before I continue talking about these encounters. There are multiple endings to each scenario, so a bad ending doesn't mean reset and try again. It means the story continues based on whatever negative thing has just happened to you, which I'm always a fan of this sort of fail-forward idea. But coming back to this encounter idea, at the end of every round, surveillance ticks up, and then you're going to have encounter cards. And those cards might be one-off things that increase more surveillance, cause you more stress, bring in more enemies, but also some of them are things that are sort of hanging out, doing bad things all the time. Or as you saw in my playthrough, there's the one that makes specific skill checks harder to accomplish, turning those -1 skulls into auto fails. And some of these encounters will stay there, as I said. And you may have to use a hacking task to slowly work, or not slowly, but quickly remove those things. They will slowly tick down and go away by themselves, even if you don't hack them. But having the ability to get rid of these negative things quicker is very important in certain situations, so that you don't have this horrible thing hanging over your head that's slowly eating away at your cards or slowly elevating the surveillance, ticking you faster and faster towards the end of the game. So there's this definite real feeling of, I need to get this stuff done before the timer runs out. I need to deal with the enemies enough to either get rid of them or to sort of push them to the side so I can escape and get things done before they come to me, and then I can sort of run away and do other things. All of this with this interesting sort of skill check card play, grid-based modifier token system that really brings in a great feeling of timing and efficiency and push your luck, and all of this tied together really makes for a very interesting experience. And now I'm very curious to see more. Again, I've only seen the first scenario, the first story of this game, and I've only seen 2 characters. I know they're going to have 4, maybe one additional character, lots of extra characters. I believe the full campaign is going to be 5 stories, but again, remember, they have different endings, and I think it's going to get quite a bit more branching. I don't know quite how much branching is going to happen, how much the story is going to change, but it seems to me that they are working on a branching story with many different endings. And the other thing I still want to see is how the sort of deck system works, what kinds of cards I'm going to be getting later. I noticed at the end of the game there was sort of a keyword or sort of a trigger that if you did this, this got checked off. So in the future, I'm sure it's going to refer back to if this happened, then this happens kind of system, which is nice because that means that you are sort of influencing the story in some way, which is always nice for me to see in an adventure story game like this. But again, I'm curious to see where the story goes. I'm curious to see how the sort of deck construction works as you play through the story. I do know that there are lots of different sort of differences between the characters' abilities and cards, and I've only seen 2 characters. So already that brings in quite a bit of replayability. If the story is super branching, that also brings in some more replayability. There's a whole bunch of different kind of tweaks you can make to the difficulty. Means there's a story card and a challenge card that have different thresholds for the surveillance triggers, but you can also play at different difficulty levels by sort of seeding the encounter deck with more or less difficult or easy cards in there. So there's definitely quite a bit of variability. Now I have played through this intro chapter 4 times now, and I'm still enjoying every play I play through. Now I do know what the story is, so I'm kind of rushing through the story and future plays. But the card play and the modifier and the push your luck and all of this sort of mechanical stuff is still fun, even already knowing what the story is going to be, even already knowing what cards are going to come out. And yeah, now that I sort of know what the future is when I play, I should play at a slightly more difficult levels because I can sort of plan for things that I shouldn't really know about, at least in my first playthrough of the game. But anyway, I'm still really enjoying this. I'm loving the world that they've created here. I'm loving the theme. I'm loving the art. The mechanics of this game really do work together. I'm a big fan of what I've seen so far, and I definitely am excited to see more. If you are a fan of LCGs, if you are a fan of sort of card-based adventure story kinds of games, definitely check this one out. As I'm recording this video, it has just gone live on Kickstarter this week. I will put a link to the campaign down below in the description, so definitely head over and check it out if this seems like something you'd be interested in. That's basically all I have to say. I hope that this video was helpful for you. As always, if it was, I do ask that you remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.